All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. We've got three teams still vying for two spots in the postseason in Major League Baseball, and it's all going to come down to a doubleheader tomorrow between the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Now, after losing three in a row, the Mets rallied today to shut out the Milwaukee Brewers 5-0 as they are currently 88 and 72. The Braves today fell to the Kansas City Royals, and the Braves are 88 and 72 as well. And then there's the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks were able to salvage their season ending series with the San Diego Padres today. And you got the Diamondbacks right now sitting on 89 wins. And of course, that's important because if they had lost today, both the Mets and Braves would have gotten in, being that the Mets and Braves hold tiebreakers over Arizona. So you look at this, and to me, tomorrow's doubleheader could have been avoided because if for once in his life Rob Manfred would have done the right thing, and I said this from last week, you knew that the bad weather was coming to the Georgia area. Shift the series to another city. But Major League Baseball didn't do it. So, you got the Diamondbacks, you got to sit back and sweat it out because they're basically, if you're Arizona, you're hoping for a sweep by one of these teams because if they split, then guess what? You're going home. So you got that factor right there. Then, you're looking at it right now. If you're the Mets, will you be able to answer the call? I mean, the Mets were looking good. They had just taken 3 out of 4 from the Philadelphia Phillies. And, they went to Atlanta for this series. They dropped the first game. And then, of course, the storm came. All right. Then they went to Milwaukee, dropped the first 2 games of that series. And, of course, after the way that they played, especially on Saturday, they only got 2 hits and they got shut out by the Brewers, and they had not beaten the Brewers this season until today. You just had to wonder and see how the Mets are going to respond. But they jumped on Milwaukee early. And of course, the rest was history. And of course, if you're a Mets fan, you're going to sit back right now and say, hey, will this team answer the call? And the reason why I say it is this because unfortunately, the Mets historically have a history of melting in these situations. So if you're a Mets fan, hopefully the 2024 version of this team will do something different. But you look at it for both the Mets and the Braves, they have to treat tomorrow like the postseason because it truly is. It's basically win or go home. And, it's one of those where I do feel that these teams, could be at a disadvantage. Because they don't get the days rest to prepare for the wild card round, and B, you got to throw your best guns out there as far as pitchers to go out there and do this. And it's one of those where, especially for the loser of game one, that it's going to be all hands on deck trying to win game two and get to the postseason. You're looking at it right now. It looks like it's going to be Tyler McGill taking the bump for the Mets in the first game of this series, and he will be opposed by Spencer Schwellenbach. And then the Braves are holding back Chris Sale for game two. If they lose game one, you're going to see Sale in game two. And then for the Mets, if they lose game one, we're going to see Luis Severino more than likely with a win and in scenario. So both of these teams are going into this with their magic number at 1. You have to win one game, okay? And you have to go out there and put your best foot forward. Um, Regardless if it's been Fulton County Stadium, Turner Field, and now Truist Bank Park for the home as a home of the Braves. The Mets historically have not done well in the state of Georgia against this team, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can have a reverse of fortunes tomorrow. I'll tell you like this, clearly the Braves have an advantage right here. A, they're home. B, they've been home for several days now because this series was supposed to take place during the week, and then the Braves were at home this weekend when they hosted the Kansas City Royals. The Mets had to take a flight down to Atlanta at the beginning of last week to prepare for one game of a series, with the rest being washed out, and then they had to catch a flight to Milwaukee, and now they've got to go out there, and I'm sure they're there by now in Georgia prepping for this game. So, both of these teams, more than likely, they're going to be at somewhat of a disadvantage if they get into the postseason because clearly one of them, at least one of them, is going to get in. Okay, but nonetheless, it's kind of like a de facto playing game. It's kind of like the de facto 163rd game that we've been accustomed to seeing for generations in Major League Baseball to decide things. But nonetheless, at least the playoff format has changed. So I'm looking at it right now. It's there for the taking for both of these teams. It's just a matter of who is going to answer the bell, who's going to seize the moment. And I really, for either side, because if you're the Mets, the bats have not been, hot in recent games. Maybe today's win was a step in the right direction. David Peterson, he pitched one of his best games of the season for the Mets. And hopefully, if you're a Mets fan, that can be a boost for this club. The Braves, so many injuries this season, so much resiliency, and that's a credit to their skipper Brian Schnicker as he has his team once again on the cusp of the postseason. And Carlos Mendoza, the manager of the Mets, deserves a lot of credit because this was supposed to be a throwaway season for the Mets, okay, and B, after their slow start, it looked like this team was going to lose 85, maybe 90 games. The Mets still have an opportunity to win 90 games this season. So I do think, Carlos Mendoza has done a good job with this team. They've overachieved. And if you're the Mets, hopefully you can try to pull it together and, of course, at least split this series tomorrow and get into the postseason. Nonetheless, if you're both of these teams, it's all hands on deck tomorrow. There's nobody, should be worrying about pitch counts. There shouldn't be anybody not hustling for a base hit, not hustling to turn a single into a double into a triple, hitting and running, doing all of the fundamental things. It's win or go home. It's right there in front of you if you are, if you're ready to do it. Cal one to God. Peace here, my brother. You're saying I'm here, bro. I see it. Good work. Listen, as always, Doc, I definitely appreciate the support, my man. So you're looking at it right now. It's all on the line. It just comes down to who is going to seize the moment over these next 18 innings of baseball. Who's going to be the guy or the guys that propel their teams? If you're looking at Pete Alonso for the Mets, okay, you're heading into free agency. You want that big deal? Go out there. Tomorrow is your moment. Guys like that. The onus is there. It's just a matter of what you're going to do with it. 160 games have been in the books for both the Mets and Braves. They clearly need two more to try to get to the postseason. And let's see what becomes of it. A lot of people in a couple of MLB cities around, the baseball world, they're chewing their nails right now trying to figure this out. But nonetheless, I think we are in store for some good old fashioned baseball tomorrow between New York and Atlanta. And like I said before, let's see who's able to seize this moment and punch their ticket to the postseason. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Cal One to God, that as always, thank you for chiming in. And like I said before, thank you for the support as always, my man. And once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.